Okay, good morning. For the record, I'm Chris Young, Chair of the HTC Sign Advisory Committee. Let's confirm access. Members, please respond with an aye when I call your name. Mark Catone.
Aye.
Kevin Kuster.
Aye.
Paul Wolf.
Aye.
And staff, we have Esmeralda Martinez.
Present.
Okay, this open meeting of the HTC's SAC is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020. That order, posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to convene remotely so long as public access to deliberations is reasonably provided. This meeting is convening via Zoom, and video audio recording will be available on the town's YouTube channel. With no, we are going to feature public comment, and materials provided to members for this meeting or during the meeting will be available on the town's website. During the meeting, I'll introduce agenda topics and speakers. Please remember to mute your Zoom and audio until your name's called. Let's direct comments and questions through the chair to avoid crosstalk and taking minutes easier. And votes will be conducted by roll call. So let's call the meeting to order at 9:05 on July 19th, 2022. And do we have a motion to approve our agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks. And Kevin, are you in favor?
Aye.
And Mark?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Okay, we have the approval of the agenda. Esmeralda, I do not believe we have minutes to approve at this time. Is that correct?
That is correct, not yet.
Oh, okay. So is anybody here for public comment on a subject that is not on the agenda? So, okay, seeing nobody, we'll move on to new business. The Boys and Girls Club Antique Show at 61 Sparks Ave. Do we have anybody on the line for that?
I don't see anyone for that.
Okay, well, let's just open it up and give it a review. Okay, so they've done this banner sign before. Temporary sign. And did they list the timing on their application?
They did not, but I believe they said it's coming up this following weekend. It's for, I believe it's just for the weekend. The
Okay,
21st to the 24th, but I could be wrong.
okay, we can make that a stipulation of any recommendation. We'll open it up to the board. Paul, do you have any thoughts?
I have no problem with this. I can't read what the little letters say down at the bottom, but I'm sure it's fine.
Okay, Kevin?
I have one other comment though.
Oh, yeah.
In the past, they've strung out a whole bunch of little signs along the road when they have an event. And I'm assuming that that's not going to be the case, that this will be the only signage.
Okay, we can make that a stipulation as well.
Okay.
Kevin
I have nothing to add.
or Mark?
Nothing to add as well.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion?
Motion to approve with Paul's comments about no additional signage other than what has been applied for here.
Okay,
Second.
Thanks. Before let's attach a timeline to it just so that it's in the recommendation. Esmeralda, I'd like to see that we add it no longer than a 7-day window that this would be up. Does somebody want to second that amendment?
Second.
Okay, so we'll vote on this as a recommendation for approval with no additional signage in the 7-day window. Paul, are you in favor?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
And Mark?
Aye.
Great.
Alan. Gosh. No.
Okay, let's go on to the next application, which is the Garden Club. So Deb, you're on the line for this.
I'm on the line. Thank you.
Okay, introduce us to your
Pardon?
application.
We,
Introduce us to your application. What are you applying
okay,
for?
this is our, I think it's a 66th annual house tour, having missed 2020 and 2021. We are asking to be allowed to use signs similar to what we've used in the past. They are only up from roughly 10 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's the banner. We're asking for a banner and for signs. The banner is on the private property of the house owner, and it's merely to point out for the people who are doing the walking tour which houses are on the tour. So that would be the banner. And then I think, yeah, and there's the house tour sign, which we put along Main Street, usually in the property of the people who are having the house tour. So again, these have been used in years past. I know that doesn't mean they're going to be approved this year, but they have been used in the past, and they are taken down at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So from 10, let's say 9:30 to 4, they're there.
Okay, thank you. Mark, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I really don't have any concern. These will be up for, it sounds like 6 hours, and I really appreciate the applicant even submitting with us on this and working with us on it. So no concerns. Thank you.
Great. Kevin?
No concerns. I'd make a motion to approve.
Okay. Paul,
Second.
let me just, Paul, seconds. Okay. Mark, you in favor?
Aye.
And Kevin?
Aye.
And Paul?
Aye.
Great. Thank you, Deb.
Well, thank you very much. And thanks, Esmeralda, for working so quickly with us. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
All right, I'll say goodbye then. Thanks. Have a good day.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, Deb. Okay. So Nantaco at 21 South Water. Do we have anybody on the line to represent that?
Yeah, Chris, Stephen Cohen for the applicant.
Hi, Stephen. So we've reviewed this one before. Were there any changes submitted, or are you just here to continue the conversation?
I think we're here to continue the conversation. And I want to say up front that my client is open to trying to find a solution that works for everybody. But you know, one of the issues that he has is that his storefront is only 7 linear feet. If you pin by there, you can see it's very, very small. So they need a sign that's a little bit attention grabbing. And so that's not confused with the other stores that really take up storefront in that area. It's difficult to find a store without something that pops a little bit. But what I wanted to go through is I watched the last hearing and I was a little surprised at some of the things that were said. I don't necessarily want to go through them all, but it seems that they're inconsistent with the reality of what's on the ground on Nantucket in the downtown core district. And you know, my client sent me a number of photographs that I'd like to review briefly with the committee. It's not a comprehensive list, but I think it's very suggestive of the fact that there seems to be a lot more leeway than is suggested for some applicants than others. And what I mean by that is that most of the signs seem to be compliant with the idea that they're 4 square feet and they're in the right places and they're wood and they're painted and but then there seems to be dozens of signs that are wild colors that are or bright colors that have logos that are 50, 75, 100% of the sign that are scripts and fonts that are not remotely serif or subtle. And if, I don't know, Esmeralda, do you want me to share my screen or do you want to show it, the email I sent?
You can certainly share if you like to, or I can share. That's not a problem at all.
Okay, I'm gonna share here. Bye. Okay, so everybody can see my screen. So you can see here, we'll just do a little tour. And again, this is not comprehensive, but I think it's indicative. You know, the tavern has a very large logo, half of its sign. The Easy Street restaurant there has a very colorful sign, very large logo. The Brotherhood of Thieves has a very large logo. Our After House, has a very modern font and a very large logo. Dune is a bright color with a very modern scripture. or font. And again, I want to say I'm not complaining about any of these. I think that many of them are approved and many of them look great, but they seem to be inconsistent with the advice that my clients been getting. Languedoc, you can see, nearly the whole sign is the symbol. Nantucket Surf Club there in the middle is interesting because that's directly next door to my client, and that's a very bright, colorful sign where the logo is nearly the whole thing. Indian Summer, again, very bright logo, many colors. Logo is nearly the whole sign. Hill House on Main Street, very bright colors. Million Grace, you can't tell there, but it's more of a pink. The lovely, very, very fancy font and a purple sign. The Water Jewels, that their symbol is that seahorse, and it's nearly the whole sign. Resispa, the barrel is their symbol, and that's a very large part of the sign. University of Nantucket, again, a very large part of the sign is the logo. Henry Michaelis Photography. If you look, you can see that's actually a vinyl sign. I assume they're going to get a wooden one, but it's not obviously compliant. Joy West, again, modern font. Serenella, very modern font. Charleston Shoe Company, right in the core district, has a very bright teal sign. Young's Bike Shop, I included an old photo instead of a current one, but it's the same sign, and you can see there, it's got moving parts, and the logo is nearly the whole sign. Lex Rex is nearly the whole sign is the logo. Black Dog, nearly the whole sign is the logo. Backyard Barbecue has an oversized sign. It's one of the only signs that's not a square. Faraday, you can see, is very similar to my client sign. It has very modern typography and a colorful logo. The Blue Beetle, you can see that beetle is nearly the whole sign. Vis-a-vis, which is next door to me. I would point out that I actually have a black sign with white letters and serif font, which I actually hate because it's not our logo, but that's what we put up at the sign committee's request. But the Blue Beetle has a large logo in bright colors. Erica Wilson, very bright sign right on Main Street. Nearly the whole sign is the flowers. Lemon Press, nearly the whole sign is a bright yellow lemon. Ariyoshi, very large logos. The 14, large logo. The Beat, the whole sign is a bright red beet, very, very large. John Ruge, or however you say that, again, a very large logo sign, and not typical typography. The Hub and Andersons both have fancy scripture fonts. Peachtree has non-serif fonts and a large logo. Ralph Lauren, their main sign is just a huge symbol that takes up nearly the whole sign and doesn't even have the words on it. Although if you see here, they also have Polo Ralph Lauren on the window, which is not consistent with your guidelines, which say it's supposed to be on a lintel, not on a window. Co & Co has a great sign. It's bright blue. Town Pool, bright blue and orange with a very large logo. There's the Ralph Lauren. Instead of on the lintel, it's on the window. Blue Beetle there, you can see they actually have two signs, and again, it's not on the lintel. The Chamber of Commerce, very large logo. The Cape Cod 5 sign is very busy. It has a lot of information. It seems to be outside your guidelines. Native has a very modern scripture. Lily Pulitzer and Aaron Heel, they seem to be using the signature and the logo as the whole sign. Again, not a serif font. The Hollover, about half the sign is their logo, and it's in the window. And I actually think it might be there because they didn't get approval for it, but which is kind of sad because I think the Hollover is an institution that we all love. I'm not sure what's objectionable about some guys in a boat. But Vineyard Vines, you can see they actually have three signs. One sign is on the street, which is not at the door like it's supposed to be. Then they have another sign over the door. Then they have another sign at the door. Again, it's got a pink whale. I don't know why pink is okay, but also it says by Murray's of Nantucket. So it's actually advertising a business that is not at that location, which is also against your guidelines. Respoke, bright yellow and red, very large sign. The whole sign is the logo. And they seem to have these bike signs leaning against the building, which I know you have vehicle sign rules. These seem to be inconsistent with that. Beauty Counter, again, their logo is the whole thing, and it's a very modern font. J. McLaughlin has this modern font on a bright sign. The Butler Collection, again, their symbol is half the sign. Current Vintage has 2 signs, and it's a bright teal color, and they're not supposed to really have 2 signs. Hingham Institution for Savings, again, 2 signs. Gypsy has 2 signs. It has a very modern font, and the blade sign over there is nowhere near the door. This sign is near the door. Again, not consistent with the guidelines. This Act 4170, this is their symbol, their logo, and it's the whole sign. Green Eye Daisy, very bright sign, green and pink with more than half the logo, more than very large logo. Inkerman has this modern font. Nomad has a very modern font. Stoke Act has a very modern font. Paggio Jewelers has both a modern font and 2 fonts. Positivity has this very large paw in the middle that's much more than 15%. And then I'll end with 7 Cs, which I think is interesting because this is probably the most historic sign, and it is inconsistent with your guidelines. It's not on a lintel. It's a very fancy font. It's a freestanding set of letters instead of on a board. And I think many of you know this is actually the house that Herb and Melville met with Captain of the Essex and heard the tale of Moby Dick in this house. And that is not consistent with your guidelines, although I'm sure you didn't approve that one. Predates you quite a bit. So my point here is just that there are literally dozens and dozens and dozens of signs that appear to be inconsistent with your guidelines. And I think one of the reasons is they're just guidelines. They're not hard and fast rules. And what my client would like to do is work with you and come up with a sign that is consistent with his business and with his colors and with his logo and with his font that gets treated the same way everybody else is treated. I'm not sure how something like this is approvable, but my client's sign isn't. Or especially next door, he's got this sign.
I think we know where you're going to the surf shop.
Yeah,
we reviewed that sign.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's purple, it's gold, it's red, it's a little magenta in there, and it's very large. So I'd like some feedback from the commission, but we'd also like to be treated consistent with how other people are treated.
Okay. Let me make a few comments first, just to set a few things straight. I don't think you were entirely accurate with your assessment of a lot of the signs around town. So businesses are allowed 2 signs, a wall sign and a projecting sign. There's lots of combinations allowable. And there are times when we will allow 2 projecting signs when, for example, a second wall sign isn't appropriate or the location wouldn't be. So a lot of the examples you pointed out there, I don't think really were accurate. As well, when you talk about modern fonts, there was a big discussion probably 6 or 7 years ago. I don't recall exactly when sans serif capital block lettering was approved, and that was through a sign maker that came in and sort of made a presentation. So a lot of the modern fonts that you're describing are actually just sans serif all caps. So granted, there are a lot of signs here that you've shown us that aren't approved that probably ought to be on the violations list. So that's nice of you to bring those to our attention. And also, I think that you're misconstruing when we say that the logo has to be 15% of the sign, it's only when the applicant says, this is my logo, I have to keep it intact with this font. It's usually a font-driven discussion that brings that 15% into play. In other words, the Surf Club has a serif traditional font, therefore the sign was considered approvable. Same thing and a lot of these signs also predate our guidelines. So for example, Indian Summer, well, not necessarily our guidelines, but that Indian Summer sign has been up for 25 years. Dave Iverson could tell us how long, but that particular sign hasn't changed in a long time. Maybe it's been repainted, but that design. So a lot of these things are going back, Languedoc I don't think any of us recall when that sign went up. It was, again, decades ago. So we're doing the best we can with the applications that we're presented with. I think that keeping the streetscape as protected as we can, that's our mission. So I just want to make those points. And one other question I had, as far as the drawing attention to the location, there's an orange awning that's up now. Did that go through HDC, just out of curiosity?
I don't believe it did. My client was preparing an application for that separately. That I believe it's been filed. You can thumbs up or thumbs down as to whether or not that got filed. But essentially, there was I believe a green awning there, or no, it was a red awning. And when they went to replace it, that material was not available. So they replaced it with whatever was available, which is the orange color. But that either has been or will be filed for.
Okay, so I would say that it's pretty attention getting in its own way.
Yeah.
But let me open it up to the board. Kevin, do you have any comments you want to make?
Sure. I'm not going to rehash all those signs that were shown. Some of them must have come out of, the NHA, because I don't think the businesses are even around. Anyway,
those are all current.
Have the photograph I sent in? Esmeralda?
I do. I'm pulling it up.
I took this photograph yesterday, and I just want to point out the multitude of signs that this business has without applying for them. When the photo comes up, you'll see that across there, you'll see a oversized menu board at the door. You'll see a trash can with a sign on it. You'll see plastic hanging flag type things that are in the entryway, hanging down from the ceiling, that are logos cut out of thin sheets of plastic. That continues onto the inside of the store. You can also look from the street and see the wall on this. There you go. You can see the wall, chips and salsa, chips and salsa. I think if Mr. Cohen looks at the guidelines closely, our jurisdiction is any sign that can be seen from a public way, whether it's inside or outside. So, and the awning I know is not applied for because it has not gone through HSAB at this point. There may be an application. And the lighting that is on the unapproved sign that is up is far brighter than the 30-watt light guideline. And I can't recall if the application even called for lighting. So, and I know that this applicant was back working with a different sign manufacturer back in the winter. We looked at alternatives. I don't feel like we're getting any cooperation here. And in fact, I see a multitude of violations. And if every business, regardless of if they've got 7 feet or 17 feet, began to treat it like this, I'm afraid we'd have another Hyannis situation here. And this is simply not, it's fine for the genre of the business and to create some, Latin vibe, but that's not what we're trying to do on the streets. So I'd like to see an effort made to somehow come within our guidelines and frankly, not to keep wasting time on this. We have given good solid direction and we keep seeing the same things come back. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Paul?
I would pretty much agree with what Kevin just said.
All right, thanks. Mark?
Yeah, I'd agree with everything that's been said as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So Stephen, you've listened to the previous meeting. I think that really what we were trying to do is find a sign that, the colors, I think it was a combination of colors, font, and obviously other unapproved signage is a different issue. But to come up with an approvable projecting sign, which is what we're doing right now, it really is a matter of just trying to bring it closer to what the guidelines recommend. We certainly have flexibility. We're always willing to work with applicants, but when they just keep presenting the same application and saying that they want us to review it again, it's hard to come up with new things to say. So
So I have a
Sure.
couple of questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
So there's essentially 3 parts to the sign, or 4 parts. One of it is the size, which is not objectionable, right? The other is the color, the other is the symbol, and then there's the name, right? Those, break it down
The
that way.
font, the
Yeah.
name, more the font than the name.
Right, okay, so if the font on the name changed and the symbol was the same and the color was the same, would that be closer?
I think it would be nice to see some revisions made. I think that that's one. The font was clearly one of the things that caught everybody's attention. The overall color scheme is recommended to be a muted scheme. Yes, there are examples, but I think some of your examples point out how we've muted, say, was it Millie and Grace? You know, that's not a bright pink, it's a muted pink. Dune is not a bright teal blue, it's a muted, blue. So there are ways to knock down the color and not lose your identity. So I think that those things would be, based on previous comments, I think those would be appreciated revisions.
So the taco with the sunlight as in its size and location, is that okay?
Let me see what don't want to speak entirely for the board. I'll just go around the horn one more time. Kevin,
I just want to make sure that if we consider changes, that there are changes that are targeting your main concerns.
Understood. Kevin, do you understand what he's asking?
I believe so. If I understand correctly, there's trying to be Mr. Cohen's trying to put a difference between the font and the sunburst. I guess the question I have is, based upon all the other presentations I see, it looks like they're meant to go together and that combination is the logo. If that's not the case, I think you could explore separating the font with a more traditional font, whether that's a serif font or a bold uppercase letter of some kind, or a script. We have allowed scripts because they are, they are more, accurate historically in some signs.
Right.
But I think we'd have to see how that goes together. Again, I don't have any problem with the logo as it is. If it's down to 15%, that's the accommodation we made for, a lot of people. If they want to keep those 2 elements together.
Right,
Well,
that's a good point. That's just to point out too, that's an example like Dune, for example. I think that their font was inappropriate, but it's a 59. So just to point that out. Let me just continue, Steve, before you speak. Paul, do you have
sure.
reaction to Stephen's request if the font were?
Can we see a picture of the sign that's being applied for? If not, my only concern would be with the colors and the need to tone them down. There we go. Yeah. They're not very traditional colors. So muted colors, as Chris, I think, spoke about before, would be better. That's it.
Mark?
Yeah, I would agree with what Paul just said. And of course, compliance in general beyond just the sign revisions to the storefront.
Right, thanks. So Steve, does that give you some direction, or did you have another question?
Well, just a clarification. It seems like you guys use the word logo to mean a couple of different things, or did I hear it differently a couple of times? So sometimes when I think of the logo, I think of the symbol, but you sometimes use it when you're talking about the word. which is also, I guess, part of the logo. So if I just want to make sure I understood, you're saying that if the word itself were a more traditional font, that it could be large, but if we want that font, it needs to be smaller. Is that accurate under your guidelines?
It's because, of course, design is a fluid
Yeah.
art form, right? We're always reacting to what's presented. But what we're saying is that in the case of this sign, the Nantaco, I think it was expressed to us originally, well, this is our logo, this is our brand, this the way that Nantaco is written, the way that the sunburst is attached to it, that's our logo. And so when we hear that, we're saying, okay, the entire design is your logo. If Nantaco were to be more traditional, then you could probably say that this sunburst and the Nantaco are separate. It's no longer your logo. You know, I'm not going to tell you how to present your perspective here, but I think what we were told is this is our brand, this is our logo. And we said, okay, if that's the case, then the guidelines would suggest 15% is your maximum size if you want to maintain that font as part of your logo. So I think it's, you know, even with all the examples you gave, you have to admit that the font here is pretty atypical of any sign on the island. So that would go a long way, I think, to making this an approvable sign, is separating the font and making it more traditional.
Right. I mean, it is, but there are also a number of other fonts that are very atypical as well, some of which are on, you know, different kinds of signs. I still pretty firmly assert that there are dozens and dozens of signs that don't follow your guidelines, but I also want to try and figure out, you know, where the solution is here. And, you know, I don't think what my client is willing to do is to come in with like teeny tiny lettering and a teeny tiny logo and a black or white background, but we might be able to look at some revisions, or we might decide to go forward as is. So I guess for now, I don't know if you want to continue it or if you want to, what your process is.
Why don't we hold for revisions? And I think that would be the wisest move. And you can just confer with your client.
Okay, I think that works.
All right, let me just ask for a motion for that if somebody wants to make that motion.
So moved.
Hold for revisions.
Thanks. All right, so Paul and Mark, you're seconding.
Yes.
Kevin, are you in favor?
Yes, I'd just like to add that as part of this application, there was a master sign plan presented. And in actuality, there's a lot of signs up that are not in this master sign plan. So it's great to bring revisions on this, but if it's just a ploy to keep what's up there existing, and you know, it's a pretty large mess down there as far as I'm concerned. And I hope we see some revisions. Otherwise, we should just move on to the next step. So I am in favor of holding for revisions.
And Mark?
Aye.
And Paul?
Aye.
Okay. Stephen, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, we have the Cottage Hospital at 57 Prospect. Jason, are you on the line for this? Do we have a representative on the line for this?
We do.
We do. Apologies. Good morning, everyone.
Oh,
This is Jason.
good. Hi, Jason. All right, so introduce us to this application.
Sure. So I appreciate the board viewing our request this morning. I am requesting on behalf of the Nantucket Cottage Hospital, as well as the Mass General Brigham Healthcare Network, to switch out the existing lettering on the hospital's front portico from what currently says Nantucket Cottage Hospital with the shield iconography in shell to the new Mass General Brigham with the tagline Nantucket Cottage Hospital, as you see in the bottom picture on the screen.
Okay. I think that one of the things, can you zoom in, Esmeralda, on the existing Nantucket Cottage Hospital? Okay. I just wanted to confirm. So that is a traditional serif font. So particularly based on the previous conversation, we would want to make sure that you follow the guidelines to have serif fonts, and realizing that might be a departure from your traditional branding. It is something that other businesses have done to
Okay.
comply with guidelines. I'll just make that comment personally. Let me open it up to the board for other considerations. Paul?
Yes, I have a question. Is this the only location where this sign is going to be changed to Mass General Brigham, or is it all the locations at the other points of entry?
Nope, this is the only sign that we're requesting. The existing roadway signage and entry signage we are keeping as the Nantucket Cottage Hospital to stay with the traditions of the signage on the island. So it's just this one that's within the parking lot above the portico at the main entrance of the hospital.
Okay, so the around the corner, there's an entrance that looks the same that's for the emergency department. That doesn't change?
Correct. It does not.
Okay. All right, Kevin. Chris, I don't have any other questions.
Okay, thanks. Mark?
I don't know that I have any questions, but I do think it's really not in keeping with Nantucket in general. I think we worked with the institution at length with their sign plan to arrive at what's there now, and to see this change, and granted there may have been some operational changes, and that's the desire, the naming change. I don't know though why we need to add. Maybe I do know why they're changing the name. With then just a mention of the Nantucket Cottage Hospital. So I'm generally opposed. I don't think it sits well in the portico. I think verbiage and content is maybe inappropriate to the campus overall, with the consistency and all the work that we had to review the master sign plan here at the campus. I also think it's a little bit of an unfortunate sort of change in a local hospital that's maybe no longer a local hospital here. So, and that maybe doesn't have enough to do with signage, but that's what I'm seeing here graphically. It looks like something I would see on Longwood Ave in Boston, not here in Nantucket. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, I agree a lot with what Mark said. However, if the name is to change, I think that it would be reasonable to keep it in the same layout and format that exists, which would mean bringing up that icon up to the top and centering the typography, beneath it as it is now. That would be one way that I think at least makes it fit within the shape and the presentation. Otherwise, if there is an insistence on keeping the logo that's on the screen now, then in all fairness to the previous applicant, that should be brought down to 15%, which I don't think is going to be an effective sign. So therefore, I'd recommend either keeping it as is would be my first preference. The second choice, rearranging the typography to make it, more like the existing. That's all.
All right, thanks. And I also think I agree with you, Kevin. I was thinking the same, is that it's sort of it loses its symmetry. I think Mark pointed out we worked hard on this application to go through the whole campus, and I would certainly need to see the font changed as well to be brought into compliance, but also more of a harmony with the other signage, which were Times Roman all capital fonts. So,
I think I just also maybe add for the applicant to pass on is that we've had cases like this before, the most notable being Pacific National Bank, when not that long ago, Bank of America wanted to come in and re-sign that building as a Bank of America building. So there is precedence for trying to keep these things called the same. That's just a point of information.
that's a good point.
Comment, Chris?
Yes, Paul.
I agree with what Kevin just said, and that same thing came to mind, but if there's an insistence that it say Mass General Brigham, what if the Nantucket Cottage Hospital was on top and then in small letters, Mass General Brigham? Keep the local, we're gonna get a lot of flack about this from the public, I suspect, for the hospital will. So if we tone down the Mass General and put it back, the name of the Nantucket Cottage Hospital, it might be more acceptable.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry, go ahead,
morning.
Jason.
Okay.
Good morning.
Tabitha, are you?
Yeah, hi, good
Yeah.
morning. I'm here with Jason as well. I'm the consultant working with the Mass General team on the entire rebrand from a signage perspective. And
Okay.
you've all provided some very valuable input here. And I just wanted to sort of share some information from the rebrand. What you're seeing right now is a logo, and there are many logos within the system for all of the hospitals across the entire system. And a lot of time has gone into locking these logos up. So the logo as it stands right now, with the proportion of Mass General Brigham and the Nantucket Cottage, there's a lot of history behind this, which I'm not as familiar with, but the logo as it's being is a locked feature. So if, you know, the ideal situation is to keep with the entire new system rebrand and to bring the sort of the knowledge of the Mass, like the entire system. So you are now connected to this entire system extension. So, you know, the ideal is to keep this locked up as is. Should we need to go back to plain text or to change the font, our suggestion would be to replace the shield with the symbol and then go with plain text with the Cottage Hospital name. But from a system brand perspective, we cannot alter this logo. And ideally, we'd like to put the logo there is our first option, because it's our only opportunity to showcase the new brand and tying Nantucket to the entire system of hospitals.
Okay. I'll go point again with that comment in mind. So Paul, do you want to speak to that?
I'm sorry, I'm not, things broke up a little bit. I'm not sure totally clear, but basically the message that I got, we can't change it.
That the logo is the logo, and therefore they would not be able to redesign.
Does the logo include the words?
Yes.
It's the entire thing. It's the word mark and the icon. Yeah, it is a locked feature. We have a lot of guidelines around the use of the logo and the use of the logo or the icon and the word mark. So we have a lot of guidelines to follow from a rebrand perspective across the entire system. So, you know, our first option is to go with the logo. As I said, it's our first opportunity to showcase the tying of the hospital to the entire system. If that is not allowed because of the colors or because of the font or the layout, then we would like to suggest, you know, replacing the shield with the new icon and leaving the existing. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
And that icon is the sort of the portico, just that graphic that's on the left of what we see. When I say portico, I mean that little design of the columns and
yeah. So
triangle.
that is the icon. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that replacing the shield would be your plan B.
Exactly, and we would leave the hospital name as is, just because we cannot then tie it back to the system in plain text.
Okay. I think that where we're heading is that would be the ideal, because of the fact a lot of, companies, Stop and Shop, FedEx, other companies that obviously spend a lot on their branding have changed their logos to suit Nantucket's needs. So we would need to hold the line on that. I believe that that's going to be the feeling of the board and the HTC when it gets there. So if you wanted to amend your application to keeping the Nantucket Cottage Hospital and using the icon above, we could vote on that or we could vote on the application as you've presented it. I think we're hearing that the board would not approve the application as it's been presented, though.
Mark?
Chris, if I may?
Yes, Mark.
Yeah, I would like to see the application come
I had
back
to turn
because
off
I don't have an
my
understanding
connection
of
is not stable.
how that logo would be represented. If it's carved, if it's in relief, is it on a panel? I'm not, I'd like a little more information if they pivot in that direction.
Okay.
A separate question for the
sorry.
applicant. Do you know where that logo comes from? The portico?
The existing, are you asking?
The
No.
new one, you mean the
Sorry.
icon? Is
Yeah,
that
the
what we're
icon.
talking about?
Yep.
Yeah, so the icon is of the four primary hospitals that come together, the founding members of Mass General Brigham. So
Do you understand where that graphic itself comes from, though, however?
I think we've lost Tabitha.
It's representative of the structure that is on the corner of Huntington and Longwood, if I'm not mistaken. It's the portico of that building. So I understand. It's a point of just information for everyone. I think it's interesting that we're representing something that's remote on our structure architecturally here versus something that was clearly tied to Nantucket previously. And if the board is obviously comfortable with that, we would move forward with the additional information I think we would require with any application if they're going to make a revision of this. I'm not prepared to make a vote at this meeting, but I would encourage them to come back with the revision as discussed today. Thank you.
If I could share my screen, we actually do have a rendering of what it would look like with just the iconography. If I could share my screen.
Esmeralda, you're letting him share the screen.
You should be able to.
Okay.
I'm not seeing the option down below. Or it was just there. Apologies. Here we go. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah. Is that it?
Yes. Okay, and would that be each individual piece a separate applied piece? In other words, 1, 2, 8 pieces
Correct.
of separate.
Those would be individual elements, each of those pieces of the logo itself, of the iconography.
And what material?
Aluminum.
With a powder coated finish? Is that what we're hearing?
Correct. It's a satin finish.
And we have a color chip. Is that right?
We do. I did supply that to the board for
good here.
reference. It is.
I guess it's a question of the board how we feel about the use of that material versus it being a wood.
I think
Yeah,
it's already in metal, I believe, Mark.
Are those lettered metal now?
Yeah. Yeah, I think they were approved as metal.
If I may interject, I do have the
Yeah.
color samples here in the office.
So which is it? The lighter blue would go on the icon?
Correct. It's a teal PMS 320C.
Anybody have a comment on that?
Do we have a dimension provided here?
Mark?
I see 2.8 square feet
Correct.
logo.
And the existing letters come to a 9 in almost 3/4 square feet, but those letters would be what is already remaining on the portico.
Paul, do you have any comment?
No,
Mark?
No additional comments. Thank you.
Okay. Kevin?
I think this would be a reasonable approach. I would, however, just keep with the existing blue that is there and not have two colors on the front of the building. I'd be prepared to make a motion on that if the rest of the board, unless the rest of the board needs to see some more information.
So Kevin, to clarify, the icon, you are suggesting to go to the Nantucket blue?
Yes.
The blue, yeah, that was going to
Okay,
be my comment
that-
as well.
Yeah, that's something I may need to go back with. That is not an approved color. It's something we could go with a metallic finish, but I'm not sure that that would be
Yeah.
approved. And
Yeah.
especially it wouldn't provide the contrast with the existing facade color. Yeah, I would need to go back to see what our color options are from the brand
Tabitha,
team.
if I could give you a recommendation, is if we
Yeah.
were to vote on this, approving it with the Nantucket blue,
Mhm.
you're welcome to come back and apply for a change. But in that case, at least you would have the approval in your, in hand for the blue if
Okay.
it goes through. Or you could just hold for revisions. It's up to you. I'm just saying that either, in one case, you're definitely coming back. In the other case, you might not need to come back. It's up to you.
Appreciate it. And so, yes, if we could go for the approval, if the Nantucket blue is the only color that the board is going to approve today, if we could get that approval. And then should the client wish to remove the symbol completely and just remove the shield and not replace it, that would be fine as well, correct? And would we need to come back to the board?
It's a good question. I guess not removing a sign is removing a sign. I don't think
It seems,
we would have to.
Chris, I think there
Yeah.
seems to still be a lot of questions about what the hospital is able or not able to do. And I think maybe we should hold for revisions. I don't see an urgent pressing need. And there's still some moving parts. I think that the applicant should, just to make your client aware that everybody from FedEx to Xfinity to Stop and Shop to Ford to Jeep to, has brought the same color, story forward. And
Yep.
we don't fit corporate regulations into our guidelines. It's the other way around. So, and I know that that's sometimes hard for big corporations to swallow, but they just have to get over it. So
Understood.
anyway, I think it probably makes sense to hold for revisions, and I would make that motion.
Kevin, if I can jump in, I like what Chris had suggested. If we could go around and get approval on replacing the shield with the icon in the Nantucket blue as the request at this point in time.
Okay, I don't think we have that motion on the table, but
Tabitha, I have to follow that process. So Kevin, you've made a
Okay.
motion to hold for revisions. Do we have a second? I don't have a second. Would anybody else like to make a separate motion? Mark or Paul? So we're either holding for revisions or. Go ahead, Paul.
I could make a motion if we're talking just about the shield and the logo and the color of that as the applicant just requested.
Okay, using the Nantucket blue. So replacing the shield with the logo as separate components in the Nantucket blue.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Okay, do we have a second for that motion? Mark, are you?
All right.
Waiting for Kevin.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, I can second that motion. I need to
All right,
make it,
thank you.
I need to make it clear. I just want to make sure we all understand what we're making, what we're approving here. And that is to, we go back to the existing sign, which is the photograph in the upper left on my screen. The only thing we are doing is we are replacing the Nantucket Cottage shield with the Mass Brigham icon. Is that correct?
Correct.
Other than that, it's the same material, it's the same color.
Correct, Kevin.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
Okay, Mark, are you in favor? Mark,
Sure.
okay, all right, that's a positive. Paul, are you in favor?
Sure.
Kevin?
Yes.
Okay, I am in favor. So thank you. Tabitha, thanks. You've worked well with us here today. So
Thank you so
let
much.
us know if your applicants want to make any, yes, if they want to make any
Absolutely.
changes, let us know. All right, thanks.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thanks. All right, we have the land bank. I think I saw John Cuspa on the line.
Yes, can you hear me?
Hi, John. We can hear
Hi,
you.
how are you?
Good.
So do you want me to kind of present what we want to do here?
Please do.
So, we're in the process of trying to, name some of our properties just to kind of help the public to remember them in one of these and also pay kind of heritage, to what they used to be. So this one is going on the corner there of Bartlett Farm Road and Hummock Pond Road. We have an existing property post there, and we'd like to replace it with a carved stone.
Okay. This is a busy corner.
Yeah.
I'll open it up to the board. Mark, do you want to?
Yeah, I looked
Sure.
at this in the view pack. I think I'm generally okay with it. It actually seems like in this particular, as you said, it's a busy corner indeed. That actually might sort of mute the busyness to some extent. Going to a rock, it's only 2 feet tall as proposed. I wonder if they'll find a rock of that shape. But I don't want, however, if this is approved this morning, to set precedent for every land bank property. Just because we might approve it in this location doesn't mean we're going to maybe approve it in a rock sign post replacement in another land bank property. Might be fine, but we may have reservations for whatever reason. So I'm generally okay with this proposal. Thank you.
Okay, Paul?
I would ask John that very question. Is the intent to just do this location or to you must have 150 of these signs around the island?
No, sorry. At this time, this is the only place we want to put one of these stones. I think each property is unique, and any signage that we change to each property would be based off of what would be appropriate there and would be brought to the sign committee. So this is we don't have a program to put rocks everywhere. We do have kind of a general concept of wanting to name some properties. And it would be something that would be removing a property post. So it would be just kind of a exchange of signs, and each one would be designed to be appropriate for the location.
Okay, no other questions.
All right, thanks. Kevin?
I have a question regarding, I guess, the corner. Is both sides of this little fence area shown? Is that land bank property, or the other 3 signs are?
That's a good question. If that's in the road layout or on our property. I mean, we obviously own that field on the corner, and across the street, across Hummock Pond
Yeah.
Road.
Well, I bring it up because if I recall correctly, the Bartlett sign was the only sign that was approved there, and it was approved to be on the fence. And somehow it's migrated off the fence, and I'm not sure if the Cisco sign was approved or not. I know as a matter of fact that the 167 sign that's kind of leaning down behind the Bartlett sign, that was not approved. So I think if we're going to approve anything at this corner, it should be cleaned up while we have the opportunity. Because it's not getting any better in my mind. So that would be my comment. I'd like to have us address all this and bring it back into compliance.
Okay, well, I think so that's an enforcement issue coupled up with this rock sign application, right? If we're either dealing with off-premises signage or unapproved freestanding signage, let's bring that up. Are you suggesting that you want to have that tied to this approval?
Well, I don't know whose property that is. If it's the land bank property, the land bank can control it. If it's
that's true.
Town property, I'm just not sure. We're seeing a stone go in outside the fence, so that indicates to me that that's land bank property. I'm just trying to use this opportunity to clean up a mess that's been there for a number of years. And if the land bank can help us do that, great. If it's not on their property, then it's on us to enforce it. So I'm not opposed to the rock. I just would, this is sort of like a master sign plan for the corridor, if you will, if that is indeed their property.
Okay, so what are you suggesting then? Do you want to make a motion of some sort?
I guess if we don't know whose property that is, we should find out. But
All right.
I don't know what anybody else thinks.
Well, John, here's a question for you. There's probably no sense of urgency here, right? It's not like you're running out of summer to sell wares or what have you. So can we ask you to come back with a more clearly identifiable property map for us to make sure that A, the rock sign is actually going on your property, and B, where those other signs are relative to your property?
Yeah, I can do that. And then my only question is, being new to being in front of the sign committee, what is the stance on signs in the road layout? Is it not allowed?
What do you mean by that? As far as like freestanding signs?
Yeah. Like, if we do survey the property and we find that our rock location is in fact in the road layout, are we not allowed to put it there, or do we have to move it back at that point?
It would need to be on your property. According to the guidelines, it can't be on town-owned property. So maybe over by that opening in the fence would be a place to consider putting it, or maybe, well, let's see where your property line is. But the Bartlett sign was a pre-existing non-conforming. That one has been there for a long time. As we've mentioned, it's sort of grown into now having some neighbors, but that was actually even reapplied for as a pre-existing non-conforming when they wanted to repaint it several years ago. So the Bartlett sign is very atypical. Obviously, not every street corner has a sign telling you what's down the street.
Okay, so what I would bring back would be an application showing where our property boundaries are and which signs, including the Bartlett's, or not the Bartlett's, I'm sorry, the 167 Seafood, the Cisco Brewery, and where those are in relation to our property. And if they were in fact on our property, then it would be our responsibility to remedy the non-conforming signs.
Yes, that's how I understand it. I'd also say that There are probably instances where the town has allowed signs to go onto the roadway, but I'm thinking of the museum, the life-saving museum, as an example. And I think the Girl Scouts had one put out on Pulpus. So there is a way to get it through the town if that is indeed what you'd like.
That's a good point, Kevin. So in those cases, John, I think they went to the select board and just requested permission, via Libby's office, requested permission to put their sign on the town property. And with that approval, we were able to allow it.
Right, but at
Because
that point,
technically, the applicant is the landowner, is how our process works. So in a weird, not in a weird way, in a technical way, we would need the town, if you wanted to put the sign on their property, to be the applicant, so to speak, even though you could represent the sign.
okay, but I wouldn't be representing, the brewery or 167 Seafood. If their signs are on town land, that's their problem at that point.
That's
And I wouldn't
exactly.
be held to what their actions are.
Yeah, that would be correct.
And is there any kind of leeway, just because we are, part of the town, the land bank? So it's kind of a gray area, and I myself don't
Sure.
know the exact, way that we are, but
I don't think it would be difficult to go, just maybe give Libby's office a call and just see what that would involve. Like Kevin pointed out, the Shipwreck Museum and the Girl Scouts went through the process, and it didn't seem that arduous.
okay.
So why don't we hold or just
Look for
continue this
further
application?
information.
Yeah, hold for further information. Is that a motion,
So moved.
Kevin?
Yep.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
Thanks, Paul. Are you in favor?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Okay. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
All right. We have enforcement, but I think we still have some people on the line regarding other business. Is there any update on the flower arrangement conversation, Esmeralda?
Not really. Last I heard from you guys wanted to seek legal counsel. And I did bring it up to Ray, but Ray would like to possibly talk to you guys again before they do that, or before we apply for legal counsel. So I'm not sure when you would like to do that. As of right now, we're not having Thursday meetings any longer. So only Tuesday meetings are the only option at the moment. And our new HDC schedule, our HDC meeting starts at 4 p.m. So I can certainly add it to the agenda for next week or the following, whenever you guys are available.
I think it would be good to have put on the agenda for the first available meeting so that we can just keep the ball rolling. And so Libby's, did we request town council yet, or you just asked Ray to request and he said he'd rather have the conversation?
I have not requested it because I have to do
Okay.
it through my office and have my superior sign off on it. Then it goes
Okay.
on to Libby. So.
Okay, understood. Yes, and when do Zoom meetings end? Have they been?
Those provisions were actually extended till March of 2023.
Wow.
I do have it on the agenda for us to discuss that if you guys ever want to go back in person or hybrid, or keep it on via Zoom. So it's up to your liking.
Okay. So does anybody have any comments they want to make on the board regarding the flower conversation? Paul?
I would only suggest that if Ray wants to talk to us, that you give him a call and say, here's what we're planning on doing. I don't think it requires a meeting. I'm going to request the town to look into the legality of it.
Okay, well, I'd like it to be done during an open meeting. I don't want to have a side conversation.
Okay.
Just to keep it accessible to the public.
All right.
So even if it's just a brief discussion at their next meeting, I'd like to do it in a public forum.
Okay.
Especially if it, initiates a conversation back and forth.
Chris, is there anything that would preclude
Mark?
Ray just participating in our meeting? Or do we need to be speaking with the full board? Does he have the authority, does he have the ability to speak and represent, I guess, his board? Because it'd be great if he could just participate in our meeting and we could have a dialogue about it.
Right.
He's just really the messenger and wants to hear our take on this and then take it back to the board. I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud on that versus trying to squeeze in on an agenda on a Tuesday. It might be easier to go the other way and have him just join us remotely.
Right. Esmeralda, what's your thought on that?
I'll be 100% honest. I don't know if he can participate as to speak on your meeting unless I post it on the agenda. But I don't
Because
see
we can
why not.
participate in their meetings.
Correct. As long as there's no more than 2 members, then it wouldn't be an issue. So I don't see why not. I'll make sure I add him to the agenda for the following sign meeting, which wouldn't be till August.
Or something like that.
Would you, just to cover our bases, would you also put us on their agenda for the next Tuesday meeting, and we can always have no comment, but just to, I will ask Ray simply procedurally what he thinks is the right way to go here, but put us on that agenda just so that it's there for
Will do.
the posting point. Okay. Kevin, did you have any comments?
It's a little befuddling to me. It was a relatively simple question. I don't know. I mean, as I recall, based on our last discussion, getting some direction on our existing language was a key part of developing our recommendation going forward. If we can't even get onto first base with knowing if our language is accurate, I'm not sure what talking to the HDC board is going to add to that. I sent through Esmeralda a request, to Libby for the information, and that was 2.5 weeks ago. I simply don't know. Number one, if we are beholden to the full board to hold this up, or I don't know. Maybe you should talk to Ray and find out. I'm not sure what he's expecting us to do at his meeting. We don't have an answer until we get some input. And
right. I think Esmeralda, let me just interrupt you. Esmeralda, you're saying that you really need because we're an advisory board to the HDC, you need the HDC to request the town council so that you can go to your superiors.
I believe so, but I can send a few emails and see what he says to get clarification on all this.
Okay, because I think that's the only point or the only reason that we would be going to their meeting is to say we need their approval to take. It is sort of they kicked it back to us and now we have to kick it back to them.
It has been, I did bring it up at the last meeting. I believe it was last Tuesday. And he's like, okay. And that was the end of it. So
okay.
I feel like I'm going in circles here.
Okay.
I actually thought you were kicking it back to the board. And then if the board wanted to continue to pursue this, then the next step 2 would be, let's confer with town council to make sure we have the language in place to regulate this in some form going forward, or do we then need to make some adjustments in our guidelines to now address this more tightly?
Right.
Maybe my recollection is incorrect on that. I thought there was going to be,
because
we could go back to the board and the board say, you know what, we've been sleeping on this and, we can only identify a half a dozen issues and blah, 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 and they may make it go away. I don't think that's going to happen, but that it's a possibility. I think we need their support. We have to find out their position based on our feedback. I thought that was kind of the sequence. And then if they're like, hell yeah, let's get rid of this, let's talk to town council and make sure we get the teeth in our guidelines to be able to regulate it. But maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think
No,
you're
I
right.
think,
I mean,
I think
we're-
you have it right. The other thing is I don't think it's necessarily just about this one type of installation. There was another one that went up on Main Street over the weekend. And there we were just talking about the Nantucket thing has got, plastic, banners hanging up in their entryway and throughout. So those are two other examples that are not full flowers that are bringing attention to buildings. So that in my mind, that reinforces the point that that's why we have the language in our guideline that we have, is for any device that attracts attention. Seems pretty simple to me, but.
All right, we're just trying to find the right, where the policy lies. And we are the advisory board to the HDC, so we have to let them be the ones who set the policy. If they want us to enforce it, we just need to know clearly what that policy is. And we can, of course, request it to be more clear in this instance, which is, I think there are a lot of questions. I see people on the line. Half said, I see you're on the line. I assume it's for this issue. I do want to open it up to the public just to see if, I don't want to restart the whole conversation, but do you have anything new that you wanted to add?
Chris, I think just point of order is that we did close the public comment on this.
We did.
Yeah, I think the discussion at this point is just really about procedurally next steps in terms of getting the HTC engaged in this discussion again, and
Right.
where we go from
Okay.
there. I don't think it's more discussion about.
No, I don't know. You're correct. Actually, I apologize. Thanks, Kevin, for pointing out. We did close the open public comment. So we're on the agenda for the next Tuesday meeting. Esmeralda, we'll ask Ray to join us at our next meeting, which is in 2 weeks. And hopefully we can get some direction that will include town council.
Will do.
Is there any discussion of enforcement that you want to bring us up to date on?
I've actually been very busy with enforcement. I've gotten multiple pictures from multiple members last few days, and I have a stack of them that are going out today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
If you
they
get an
are-
opportunity, Esmeralda, I know you're really busy, but if you have a cheat sheet or a roll call of who's getting what, that would be helpful to know.
I actually do have a spreadsheet. I can send it to you all
Okay, great. Thank you.
to follow up. Thank you.
All right. Is there anything else that any member wants to discuss?
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Before you adjourn, sorry. I know we briefly just discussed about the Zoom meetings. Do you want to keep it via Zoom?
I think
I
it
would
works well.
prefer to, yeah. I mean, I'll admit it's much easier for me to participate remotely, especially in the summer, moving my office up to town and back, than it would be otherwise. I think when we were live, actually, I would miss much of the summer. So I can contribute a lot more through this method.
Okay. Kevin or Paul, you guys?
I would agree.
I prefer the Zoom, but I know it may be a burden on Esmeralda. I don't know.
It isn't. I find this easy.
Oh, okay, then let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of, sticking with Zoom. I think the only downside is not being able to see the color samples in person. And if there's a question on that, I'm sure I would, for one. I'm sure others would be happy to go in and look at the color. So I'm all in favor of keeping traffic off the roads.
Perfect.
All right, great.
Thank you.
No change. So I believe there was a motion made by Paul.
Second.
It's Kevin, you in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
Mark
Thank you. Aye.
and Paul.
Aye.
All right. Thanks, Esmeralda.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Kevin, for keeping me on track with that Point of order.
All right, bye-bye.